Right. Isn't that what I have? Don't we have like the totally wrong?
Welcome, everyone. The time is 5:30. This is the Economic Development Committee meeting on June 4th, 2024. Quorum of members are present, so I will call the meeting to order. And we will go on to the first agenda item, approval of minutes from May 7th, that's a typo, 2024 meeting. Comments or move to accept from Alder Killian? Do I got a second? Second from Alder Tierney. Any other discussion? See none. All those in favor say aye. 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 Opposed? None are opposed. That passes. Agenda item number 2, presentation by Greater Wausau Chamber of Commerce. Mr. Liz Ackman.
I'm just going to briefly remind the committee members that we have, this year we are doing a pilot of providing educational opportunities to this committee from partner organizations, and Dave from the Chamber has been gracious enough to educate us on some of the things that the Chamber is doing, and I'll let him take it from there.
Thank you. Can you hear me fine? Okay. All right. My name is Dave Eckman. I'm the president and CEO of the Greater Wausau Chamber of Commerce. I also serve as the president of Wausau Opportunity Zone. Liz invited me here about a month ago to really talk about the importance of a pro-growth agenda for the city of Wausau, the Wausau region. Give you a little bit, just so you understand who I am, where I'm from, where I come from, professionally. My family and I, we had a manufacturing business up in Rib Lake, Wisconsin, and over time, between the product mix of what we made, the imports coming in, competing against us, and then the skateboards going to China, we closed our company in 2007. And one of the hardest things I ever had to do, my wife and I, and we moved our family here. 2005, I left the company because it couldn't afford both of us. And so my wife ran the company, and I went to workforce development in 2005. So I worked for the North Central Wisconsin Workforce Development Board as the first business services director. I traveled 9 counties from the UP all the way down to Wisconsin Rapids, Adams area. And in those 2 years, I really began to understand the nuance of workforce development, talent development. In 2007, I made the move to the Greater Wausau Chamber of Commerce, Wausau Chamber at that point in time, as the Economic Development Director, where I also ran the Marathon County Development Corporation. Did that for 6 years. In 2013, I left McDevco Chamber, and I went to work for the University of Wisconsin Stevens Point as a special assistant to the Chancellor for Economic Development, connecting the university outwardly to the communities throughout central Wisconsin. And then in 2016, I made the move back to Wausau, where I am currently as the role of president of the Greater Wausau Chamber of Commerce. Now, I tell you those things because in the years that I've been doing this, I have never seen such greater threat than we are under right now, and will be. The threats are insidious, and so when I use the word insidious, they're not apparent right before us, but they're eating away at the fabric of our economy, and it's here. Last week at the Rural Economic Threat Summit, we had 90 business leaders, community leaders, mayor was there, county officials were there, law enforcement were there, talking about the sustained, prolonged threats that we face in central Wisconsin, the city of Wausau. So when we are talking about trying to attract and retain talent, the dialogue has shifted. Back a decade ago, less than a decade ago, it was about smokestack chasing. And what am I talking about? I'm talking about us trying to bring companies here to Wausau, trying to relocate them from another community here. Those days are gone. Used to be about the capital, the money, and the incentives. 4 big companies to come here. Now it's about people. Human capital, human people, skilled workforce. It's about attracting and retaining skilled workforce. Plain and simple. The dollars that come from the companies that hired the workforce get spent, they're taxed, they serve our public good. With the diminishing population, taxpayers, the public good will shrink. What do you do when the public good shrinks? You're going to have to raise taxes. There has to be a balance between the investment of what we need to do in developing that place, critically important. And what's really troubling more so, when you look at where we're at, think about Wisconsin. You go to Lake Shore and you go Green Bay down to Racine to the border, and then you make your way across southern Wisconsin over to Dane County and then up. Those are high density, high growth areas, more businesses, millions of more people. And here we are in the Marathon County, Wausau MSA, the Metropolitan Statistical Area. We're not growing, in fact, we're shrinking. And when I say that, our MSA is not growing, and what is rapidly shrinking around us is any density that we thought we had with the central Wisconsin community, the counties that surround us. They're aging faster, they're shrinking faster, faster than we ever anticipated. And so the economic threats are real. And the summit last week, at the end of it, was really, you know what? There's not one organization that's going to help address this. It's not the chamber, it's not the Prosperity Partnership, it's not county government, it's not city government. It's all of us. All of us have to be rowing in the same direction, aligning our resources. It's critically important. The city of Wausau is the Wausau MSA, the Metropolitan Statistical Area defined by Bureau of Labor Statistics. It's the driving factors in our economy that are aligned there. The city of Wausau is the financial center of that. And it's really critical to set that framework. We have a demographic challenge here. We're getting older. People leaving the workforce. We've not replaced our populations here. In fact, we're fighting to keep our talent here. This isn't just Marathon County. This is all over Wisconsin. If you didn't know it, 62% of the state's land mass is rural, and it holds about 30% of the population, and it's shrinking. So the things we work on here, really, it's going to require our state government to be more involved in this work that we're doing. So when we talk about what we have to do here, and you know, I know there's been disagreements with respect to placemaking activities, but we live at the crossroads of commerce. 2939. It is the place that's defined on a map that people readily know that this is where Wausau is. Rib Mountain, Granite Peak, visible landmark and economic opportunity for us. This beautiful city. I live at River Life, and I am I'm very appreciative of the opportunity to live there. It's absolutely beautiful. And what you see now taking shape downtown, while I know there may be disagreement with it, it's pivotal to our future. You see home furniture, you see the Children's Imaginarium, wildly successful, bringing families here, and what's going to take shape. If we're not working together as a community to create that place where the next generation wants to be, they're going to go elsewhere. We compete across the country. Wausau competes across the country with communities, Eau Claire, Davenport, Iowa, Chicago, Illinois, Minneapolis, St. Paul, Stevens Point, Merrill. It's the nature of economic development today. Communities that are building cities, metros, to be magnetic to next generation, or even to those young people living in the community, give them a reason to stay. That's what we need to do. It's so critically important. I just, if I could recommend it, I will do this. We had our summit. We recorded it, and I will share it with all of you once we have the video compressed. I urge you to watch it. It's really important. The importance we'll call talent, innovation, innovative companies, and placemaking. So that's part of the bigger economic development plan from the Chamber and the Greater Wausau Prosperity Partnership. Goes like this. We must create the place to attract and retain the talent and develop the talent to sustain our innovative companies. If our companies do not have the capacity to innovate through their talent, they will shrink or they will leave. We already see companies around here that are making strategic decisions to expand elsewhere because they can find talent elsewhere. So what we're doing at the Chamber, some of the things that we're working on, really, we have a new program starting, Powering Innovation, and what that is really aligning, it's creating the toolbox, folks. Innovation is critically important for our companies in products and processes, but it's also critically important that the workforce is part of that innovation strategy. And that's a know-how, employing technologies to help the companies to move forward. So we're assembling a toolbox, and it's a very simple exercise. As hard as it will be, it's very simple. And it's assembling resources that are here in this community, the state of Wisconsin, the country, the globe, that will help connect resources of innovation to our companies here. It's very basic, but it's very important because we do not have that right now. That's one. The other is that we are working to craft local talent. We are working through our Workforce Hub and our different Chamber Link programs where we're connecting business, industry, government, education to align the workforce demands of business and industry to the wishes of those and the talent, the young people here, to get them aligned to our companies. So, as I'll conclude my remarks, and I'm happy to answer any questions. We need the city of Wausau. We're 90,000 in the metro. We're about 400,000 in the labor shed, the region, and we're about 40,000 here. Wausau is a beautiful city. I'm proud to call it home. But if we're going to compete in this world, I encourage you to start at least looking at some of the data. And bring Dennis Winters up here sometime. He'd be happy to come up here. He's a chief labor economist for the state of Wisconsin. He will open your eyes, and to fully understand what other communities are doing around the state, we have to keep pace. We have to. If we don't, we're going to wither. So that's my message tonight. Thank you for all you do. You do hard work. It's not easy. I've been in a village board position before. So you do hard work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
I guess, any questions, comments, thoughts?
Okay.
Anything?
Great. Thank you, folks.
Yeah, thank you for coming. Yeah, so that was, it started kind of before the last term, but we had 2 other presenters come in, and the chamber was our 3rd one. We'll keep running, I imagine, and whoever else wants to come in and present to us, so.
Yes, I think we have, let's see, McDevco slated for our July 2nd meeting.
Excellent, thanks. Okay, we will move on to agenda item number 3, discussion and possible action on sale of 1717 Arlington Lane to Gadorzi Investment 1 LLC. And Randy.
Thank you, Chair. The Gadorzi team has approached the city of Wausau to purchase the city-owned property at 1717 Arlington Lane. This is in the area of Highway 51 in the UNK interchange area. Assessor Rick Rubo provided an estimate on the assessed value for the property. You'll see that noted in the packet as $182,000. It's kind of a unique property, and if you look at the map, it's really a landlocked property. The Gadorzi team has the adjoining properties around it. Standing as itself to the city, it has minimal redevelopment value if we were to try to bring a project into it. So in this case, it seems to make the most sense to sell them based on their interest in it. It seems a fair price in what we would be able to get for it. So happy to take any questions, comments that you have.
Alder Killian. Yeah, turn your mic on.
Can you give me a little bit of history of this parcel? Because how did the city get it? Why did the city get it? I'd like to have those questions answered because the positioning seems unusual, and I just would like to hear a little bit of history of the property, please.
Yeah, that's a great question and something we've been trying to dig into to find out more too. One of the things we did find in 2013, and this is the area, if you're familiar with driving along there, you'll see the the stone retaining wall. That was a joint effort between the Gadorzi team and the city at that point to improve that based on the interchange happening in that area. Looking back, we weren't able to really find when the city purchased the property or for how much. It seems to be some time going back to 1993, even further back. We weren't able to determine it. Some of our suspicion is it had to do with right-of-way for the highway at some point and likely obtained through that manner.
Okay, so who paid for that retaining wall, do you know?
So there
That's
was
a huge wall.
Yeah, it was there was a development agreement between the city and Gadorzi at that time. I believe Gadorzi did the work. The city did pay for a lot of that work that was done there through that agreement.
And I believe 3/4 of that wall is on city property and 1/4 of it is on the Gadorzi property, is that correct?
It seems about accurate. I haven't
Okay.
taken an exact look at it, but
My other question is, I don't know if there are any resolutions or anything with the city. You guys could probably answer that. It's 6.7 acres. Is that something we should put an RFP out on, or?
I think given the special circumstances in this case with Gadorzi owning the adjoining properties around there, if we went out there, we're really limited in what we would be able to bring in for any type of development. Frankly, this property hasn't been on our radar much, just given the location. So having this opportunity to get this back on the tax roll, given to a company that does development, that can bring these properties together for a larger development, seems to be in the city's best interest, and getting a fair market price for it, I think, is a win for the city.
Okay, thank you.
Question?
Alder Gislin.
So how did Rick come up with that number? It just seems like this is part of the, that whole development along the highway, along Westwood Drive. It seems like pretty potential property development. Do we know how he came up with this kind of, for instance, with comparables? It seems like, this is pretty expensive territory in here for specifically coming into the north, into the Arthur Avenue County Road U, and specifically with the Westwood Drive development, that's, I would imagine, that's pretty expensive territory. Do we know how he came up with that kind of money, that kind of a sale price?
Yeah, so what he did is, just looking at his email from him, he compared it with the assessments of the surrounding properties, taking into account that you have a third of the property being swamp, only about 2.24 acres that would be buildable and the most valuable. Can't speak to the exact formula that he used, but that was what he provided for me.
Well, not only but the potential there, I think, is,
Yeah,
is great, I would think. But, that's why I was wondering if there was any thought to what that land is really worth I guess I'm not aware of the swampland. But I was just more curious about how he came up with that price.
yeah, if you look at the screen behind the chair, you'll see that northern portion where it says subject property, you can just see the retaining wall that kind of hooks through there. That area to the south, you'll see the delineated wetland. Keep in mind that this property, we don't have road access to it. It's not like a prime parcel where we have Stewart Avenue or a city street that's up to it and ready to be built. So based on that, I feel that what we're getting in terms of value is fair.
It seemed odd if the city had owned that. I'm curious, it's too late now, but, with regard to what the city had owned at one time, and what we have, I'm sure it was with regard to the development of the interchange and the interstate, but,
There were portions that were vacated off of the eastern edge of that at different times, but the vast majority of the property stayed with the city.
and we don't know how that parcel on Arlington itself, to the extreme north of that, it seems like that may have been part of, but we don't know that, do we?
I was hoping, as the city historian, that you would be able to fill us in.
I think the records of the city of Wausau are here in the city hall, and that's where they should be.
Yeah.
I would think that's where that history would be.
Yeah. We did some looking around, and like I say, we found history back to 1993, but nothing beyond that. Yeah.
Alder Killian?
Just to clarify, you don't think an RFP should be put out on this because why?
Because of the situation that
Because
the
it's
Dorsey
landlocked?
team owns the properties around there. I can't imagine we would find anybody with any interest other than them in owning this property.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions, comments? Take a motion. Alder Killian?
I'd like to ask Mr. Gadorzi a question, if I may. I read in your letter to the city, I'm going to call you Chuck, we've just
Sure.
known each other for
I'll
so
call you
long.
Terry.
Chuck, okay. I read in your letter to the city that you've had a long-standing vision for this property. Are you ready to share that vision?
Sure, the best I can. And by a long-standing vision, we really started relative to the corridor of our city, and for a long time, we've developed in the corridor. Always feeling that if we could create a good vision in the corridor, people would come in and, enjoy our city. So we've done most of all of our development in the corridor and continue to be interested in that. This particular corridor from Bridge to U at one time, we started assembling it basically because Liberty decided that they wanted to sell all of their properties except for their corporate offices, in which we then purchased. After that, the Westwood Drive became a reality because Wisconsin Physician Services was going to bring 1,200 jobs to town. So with that, we kind of started to think, well, maybe there is an opportunity in the future to create something very nice in terms of going out to Highway U. What that will be, I have no idea at the moment, but we've assembled those properties over the last 20-some years, and hopefully we can do something that is very similar to what we did from Bridge Street south and into Rib Mountain. So that would be our hope, something nice. We did Rasmussen College, the rehab hospital, a $20 million hospital has gone up there now. We've done all of the car dealerships for Koshurik out on K. So I think we have a good opportunity with the assembly of the property to do something pretty nice. And so we're patient that way. I mean, we don't necessarily need to jump at something. Our properties around Quick Trip and Surgical Associates and the new Nicolay Bank, we have properties there, and we're very patient about doing the right thing and taking time to find out what that is. So that's kind of our vision for our corridor, this being a piece of it.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions, comments? All right, we got a motion to approve from Alder Gisselman. I got a second from Alder Tierney. Any more discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? None are opposed? Okay, so that passes. We will move on to agenda item number 4, discussion and possible action on consent to transfer and waiver of right of first refusal, 2105 North 2nd Street, Wausau. And Tammy.
Thank you. As our the memo indicated, we have a commercial rehabilitation loan fund. I say had because we have not had any funds in that program for probably 2-3 years. We have a bunch of money out in the community right now, and loan repayments are being made. Can't do much until we have more money in that pot. When we do a commercial loan, we do have restrictive covenants on it that property, because we're using taxpayer dollars to do the renovations, we want to make sure that property will continue to be taxed. It will not become a nonprofit or untaxable property. So that's what we did with this property here, 2105 North 2nd Street. It was Thrive Foodery. They do have an offer to purchase, which we are excited for. The potential new owners are here if you have any questions for them. Summer and Lewis is right back there. They're originally, well, I should say originally, but they're in Marshfield right now, and they have a restaurant there, and they'd like to bring another one here, expanding, which is wonderful. And then with the sale of that property, we will recoup our loan from Thrive, and we'll have some more in that pot that we might be able to assist other commercial properties with. Any questions?
Alder Killian.
I mean, we talked yesterday, and I had asked you if Thrive had had the opportunity to pay back any of that loan over this period of time, and you told me a small amount, and you said that they had been delinquent for the last 2 years because of COVID, correct?
More like 4 years because of COVID.
Okay.
But, during 2020, we allowed everybody to be delinquent. We put all their payments on pause. Unfortunately, when we started them back up, they were unable to make those payments. To date, I show that they made just under $27,000 in payments. But since it's been sitting there, obviously, the interest is collecting. At that point, our interest rate was at 1.5%, very, very cheap. We have since increased it to 3%, which is still very cheap compared to what lending practices are. But right now, it looks like I did a payoff statement, and they owe us as of they're hoping to close by the end of the month. So I ran the payoff for that, and it's about just over $145,000.
And that is guaranteed to be paid back to the city out of the proceeds at the time of closing, correct?
Correct. I have, based on the purchase price, I have not heard that there's going to be a shortage. If there would be, we have to approve it, and we'd have to bring it back to you. And that has not been any indication at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments? I think you answered all of mine. Okay, I'll look for a motion to approve the transfer and waiver of rights on the first refusal. Motion from Alder Killian. Do I get a second? Second from Alder Tierney. Any more discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? None are opposed. And so that passes. And now we'll move on to our final agenda item, adjournment. Motion to adjourn. Motion from Alder Gissman. Second from Alder Tierney. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? None? Okay, we stand adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Oh, really?